My name is Mark Mallett, and first of all, I just want to thank Strategus for hosting this webinar and bringing us all together, part of their educational series, and this one is focused on the premium nature of connected television, exactly what that means. We've got large platforms, the traditional premium platforms, as well as a lot of other platforms out there now presenting premium content. I'm joined by Nicole Scaglione and Joe Lerner, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, but I'd also like them to share something. My name is Mark Mallett. I recently sold my sports media company, Sportiva Media Ventures, to the Sporting News, but prior to that, I spent almost a decade at Disney running various sales teams over there, of which connected television was a large part of our advertising mix. So it's something near and dear to my heart. Worked with Nicole in the past, so it was great to see her as part of this webinar. And the fun fact that I was hoping we could all share is something that we are streaming right now, or have currently or streamed recently, that feels premium to us, but might not be defined as premium by others. And I'll start. One of the things that I like to do is watch a lot of outdoor content, first person trip content and things like that. Typically not thought of as premium, but for me in particular, I lean forward. I don't skip the ads. I want to see what's being marketed to me. And it's something that I would put in the premium bucket, which in the past might not have been thought of as such. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Nicole, let you give your background, and then over to Joe, and then we'll jump in.
Cool. Thank you, Mark. So I'm Nicole Scaglione. I am the VP of CTV, OTT, and online video at PubMatic. I've been in the programmatic world since 2011, mostly on the tech side. I did work with Mark at Disney on our programmatic sales team, and Strategus was actually one of our customers, so it's great to be reconnected to this group. So I think of premium in two ways. The first is can I get my kids to watch while I'm maybe on a call or making dinner, or just need them to go over there for a minute. Most of those do not have ads, so I will tell you a true story that I am currently restreaming all episodes and all seasons of Frasier on Amazon Prime, because to me that is very premium. I think the writing is hilarious, the acting is fantastic, it is ad supported, the ads are absolutely engaging and contextually relevant to me, so it's a great experience. It's not a current run program, so maybe not super premium to everyone, but absolutely premium to me. And over to you, Joe.
I love that. So my name is Joe Lerner. I'm head of programmatic and revenue partnerships over at Xumo. Have been with Xumo for a little over 8 years. So definitely have seen the FAST and streaming space evolve drastically through that time. My house today, so I'm going to say I have two pieces of content that we're streaming very often. One being Summer House, another reality TV, which I think can be viewed as premium, can be viewed as not so premium. But I think we're really enjoying it. Definitely provides a good break from day-to-day thinking. And the second piece of content that we're streaming often is Blippi, because my 2.5-year-old loves it. And because it definitely keeps him distracted, as you mentioned with your kids as well. So
Blippi's also on Amazon Prime.
Nice. And Nicole, as a Seattle native, I love that you are revisiting Frasier in its entirety. So that's great. Well, let's dive in, and let's talk about defining premium. I mean, connected television is incredibly important to advertisers now. I think 7 in 10 U.S. households, streaming households, access an ad-supported streaming platform at one point during the month, at least one time during the month. CTV consumption is nearing 50% and is projected to get to 33 billion this year. So it is there in terms of on an equal footing with linear television, and it's a huge part of the media mix. But premium means different things to different people. It's almost like those early days of programmatic where it was hard to arrive at a specific definition. So why don't we start with you, Joe, in terms of talking about what it means to you? How do you define premium connected television in today's context?
Definitely. I think we and the industry are almost over defining it. I think we really need to allow consumers to define what they view as premium. Um, I look going back to the consumption of content in my house, and my wife loves, uh, I don't want to call it trashy because it is on Bravo, but loves, a little bit provocative reality TV shows. That's the way that she loves unwinding. She views that as premium. When I'm sitting on the couch and watching, it's entertaining, but I would view premium as something more along the lines of like Blue Bloods or scripted TV shows. But then it's challenging too, because when you look at a show like Blue Bloods, it's available on fast services, it's available on Netflix, it's available on paid services. And so if you start really trying to dig into different platforms as defining it becomes a little bit more challenging. And then when I go down the line a bit more, as I mentioned, my son, my 2.5-year-old, loves Blippi. I cannot wait until my household is done, watching that content. But it originally started on YouTube, and it's evolved into running on Disney Plus and Netflix and other really, really strong platforms. And so I think at the end of the day is premium is really in the eyes of the consumer watching it. And then from an advertiser perspective, it's in the platforms and the content that perform best for specific brands, and just making sure that all of it's aligned well, to deliver a message and deliver something that's entertaining for a consumer to watch.
Absolutely.
With that.
Nicole, love to hear kind of your thoughts as well.
So I would say from a consumer perspective, I agree with what Joe shared. And then from a buyer perspective, it really comes down to, I would take the word premium out, because premium, again, like you asked us, what are we streaming? We all gave, wildly different answers except for the kid part. And that's because we all have different ideas of what's premium to us. When you think of these large global streamers, or some of the just larger brand name streamers like a Peacock or Amazon, they all offer this opportunity to align with your brand, with a well-known brand. Whether the content is premium, you could watch a show and say, actually, that's not really my type. I don't like it. I don't think the writing's good. I don't like the acting. I don't like, etc. It could be, your definition of not premium, but it connects with a large audience. And if that is what a buyer is looking for, those brand names really serve an important place in a media plan. But I would also say that as you move kind of down the funnel of consumer behavior, those brand names play a different role. Do they help stimulate an idea of, oh, I hadn't heard of this brand before, and now I'm aware of it, more interested in it, but now I'm watching more outdoor TV, or I'm watching more, like reruns of classic 90s programming, like I really want to make sure that I am connecting with that viewer in that place where he or she is most aware, so that they can take an action then drives them further down to purchasing or whatever it is that is, the final outcome. So premium is so personal. It's so personal. When you're thinking as a buyer, I wouldn't think premium. I would think, where do I need to be connecting with an audience across, through the funnel, and who can help me with each one of those objectives?
Yeah, I love that and agree. Staying on that, in terms of the, what we refer to as platforms, but the streamers, Nicole, because you're working with all of them at PubMatic, love to hear a little bit about the perception that you run into from a buyer perspective in terms of the differences of the quote larger premium SVOD platforms versus some of the other connected television platforms, and your thoughts along those lines.
I would say everybody's kind of in a different level of maturity and comfort, and each one of them brings a lot of value to, a media planner's plan. Um, I would say that the streamers that we're seeing have the most success, specifically in programmatic, and I've been on the programmatic side for a long time, are the ones who really have taken the opportunity to sit down with buyers and understand what is it that you need us to make available on a programmatic marketplace in order to help solve for your, outcome needs and your spend needs. And again, everybody's at a different level of sort of maturity and lean in here because they, and I totally advocate for this. They look at as a publisher, their full business, and they say, okay, here's where we are, here's what we're great at, here's our relationship with buyers, and here's where we believe programmatic can come and solve a problem for us or expand our customer base. They're not kind of just jamming it in there because they think it's trendy. They're really taking it in a strategic, thoughtful way and adding programmatic as a tool to make their full like suite of things they sell more, productive and successful and to grow at their pace. So I oversee like this global business for PubMatic, and I can see that in different parts of the world there is this hesitancy to really lean into programmatic from some of the larger publishers. And it's because there are these, I don't know, these paradigms of programmatic that we've kind of like absorbed through the years of programmatic's just a race to the bottom. Like I add it in and it's just the fox in the hen house. My business is gone. That's the end of me. And the reality is the ones that are the most successful, and I can plug our alma mater, Disney, are the ones who take a very thoughtful approach and use programmatic in a way that works best for their business. But what works best for their business is knowing what their customers need and being really thoughtful and listening, to what the market is demanding. So I think, I mentioned Peacock earlier. They're also doing a lot of really unique executions with interactive units and partners like Curve who are helping them with QR codes. Brightline has been an amazing partner for folks like Paramount and others who help buyers interact with this like extremely engaging, premium, brand awareness kind of content that then can become, action oriented. But everybody's sort of coming at it in a different way. And I think that at the very end of the day, the ones who are listening to their customers are the ones who are making the most progress.
For sure. So yeah, a great point, an acknowledgement that audience first, which is generally what programmatic is addressing, is what a lot of marketers want in their CTV access. And Joe, I know Xumo, huge platform, a lot of different content on the platform. How do you counsel, that audience first approach, or if somebody's maybe looking at content versus audience? I'd love to hear kind of how you walk your clients or the Xumo clients through that.
Yeah, I feel like they're so interwoven. They work together. I don't think that you can ever break them apart and take one approach. I think if you're a brand and you're only thinking about the content that you're delivering in, or you're only thinking about the audience, or you're only thinking about the platform, you're not going to actually do your brand the service that it deserves. You're also not going to get down the funnel that Nicole talked about. So all of the elements need to work in absolute partnership with each other. And I really love the point that she made around programmatic is it's an execution tactic. It's a path. It's not a thing that you can just turn on and generate revenue. It doesn't replace the different buying methods. But what it does allow us to do is combine more buying methods. So like you said, Mark, is applying audience data. It would be really hard to apply the same audience segments across 12, 15 different publishers that a buyer is working with, and have it be done in a way that's really seamless and makes sense if you're doing it all directly with those individual partners. It would be almost impossible to scale a campaign. So when we talk to our agencies and our buyers, we're really trying to take a consultative approach, really understand what they're looking to achieve. They're the ones that know their brands best. They know how to move the outcomes. and provide them solutions that help do that, whether it's applying really tight audience segments across an RON and a national type buy that runs across all of our supply that's available and all of our partners, or whether it's looking to combine that with a tactic of only looking at live sports or only looking at entertainment and movies. So really combining the two.
Yeah, and it's we're getting into that performance component, and I think that is top of mind for a lot of people. Probably a lot of people on this webinar is that marriage between premium content in connected television and driving that performance that people have come to expect in and through the programmatic channel. Nicole, you did bring up something on our prep call yesterday that I wanted, I thought it would be valuable for everybody to hear, and that's the importance of strong creative. And you used an anecdote when we were talking about it, but love for you to expand on that the importance of creative in these environments, especially premium, quote unquote, CTV environments, and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the performance discussion is an important one, right? Like, where do we go next from here with CTV? At first, it was kind of like sort of an enhancement or complement to linear, and now it's as they say, a must buy. It's on everybody's media plans, and so many of these streamers and broadcasters now have CTV components. It's a lot easier to buy. So kind of where do we go from here? And naturally, we go to performance. Now your CTV needs to work harder for me. And we are there. We do see a lot of performance buying on CTV, especially through programmatic, because there is this real-time element of feedback and the ability to make changes on the fly. But we were thinking about a customer event I was at a few weeks ago where one of the large global buyers said, but there's always a place for creative, like really important, engaging, emotional creative that connects with a viewer. And so we have this sort of this inertia pulling us toward performance. We can't forget about the value and importance of that beautiful brand creative that, going back to the first part of our conversation about premium or brand name, global streamers. And again, it comes back to buyers really understanding what is it that you're trying to achieve. If you start with this amazing Subaru commercial where the dad is at Yosemite, and by the way, I love this commercial. I always cry when I see it. They're at Yosemite and it's like amazing. And you have this emotional reaction from your viewer over the next few weeks. That viewer remembers, and you can give them different pieces of that message to get that person to a dealership to take a test drive. But I think it's important to sort of just for a moment remember why CTV is so important. It's the groundwork that linear broadcast TV laid for us decades ago, which was this amazing reach, this amazing way to connect with people. So whereas we want to get to the performance piece of this, my money has to work harder for me, especially today. And we're there. We can't forget the foundation of why TV is so special, and CTV is TV, and that is that beautiful creative, that brand engagement, that really emotional connection with a viewer.
Yeah, for sure. To that end, do you see, especially because you are working with different platforms, transparency gaps across those platforms? And I know we get into measurement a little bit later, but would love your take on that.
Transparency is interesting for large streamers because when you have programmatic, you can be very specific of what you want to buy, right? But if you are a large streamer or something like Xumo, where you kind of aggregate a lot of great content together across different supply sources, you may not want to be super transparent because you don't necessarily want someone just buying one thing. You want them sort of buying across your entire platform of supply because that actually is important for a buyer to get scale, if they have any kind of targeting, if there's any kind of, need for feedback loop, that broad swath of supply across, the full platform is important to a programmatic media buy. On the other hand, linear buyers are really used to very, specific, I'm buying this program at this time. And if you want to draw linear buyers into the CTV space, you have to be flexible relative to transparency and targeting. So publishers have leaned into different sort of solutions here. There's content object targeting, which sounds really technical, but it's not that complicated. It's something that you can, as a buyer, you can ask for a publisher or your tech partner to help you understand, like, can I get the programming, the network, the episode, the whatever show that I'm looking for? And there are other ways to be transparent relative to what you're really after as an audience, right? There's identity targeting. There are other addressability solutions that publishers may be a little bit more leaned into and more comfortable with, that help serve your need, buyer, and their need to kind of, protect sort of the vast array of supply across the whole network. I think that every individual campaign is going to come to an agreement. There may be some cases where a publisher says absolutely would be fully. I don't think anybody at all in this industry is trying to fool someone, trick someone, be dishonest. It really comes down to managing the business needs and the technology so that both get the benefit that they're looking for. And it's a little less clear with programmatic, but there are absolutely solutions that can get you there. Joe, I don't know if you
For,
want to add on
for
that.
sure.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I think you're spot on there. I don't think there's no one in this industry that's looking to hold anything back and to not be open. I think transparency is an interesting one because you have business rules and objectives that you need to solve for with partners. You have different privacy and legal concerns. I know that everyone keeps falling on VPPA as being like the standard that needs to be evolved. I think it's about really having the open and honest conversation on the buy side of what a buyer is looking for and why. If you're heavily targeting an audience, do you need to find them in a specific piece of content? Or going back to kind of our conversation earlier, is Summer House is on in my house. It is on the TV. If you're looking to reach me, that is probably a pretty good place to reach me. However, if you were looking to reach me in content only, you're never going to buy that programming, or you're never going to look for that programming.
Right.
But I think and then we also have the last piece that Nicole touched on is kind of like the standardization of of allowing linear TV buyers to move into this space is going to still take work, because the way that the data is passed through is slightly different. And so it's a matter of just making sure all the technologies and the signals work together, so that you can start bringing it together, and giving that level of comfort to buyers, specifically linear buyers.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
someone in the industry, smart person who works at one of the big streamers now, once said, it's easier to teach a linear person digital than it is to teach a digital person linear. And I really agree with that, because if you look at kind of like our backgrounds, like being like digital forever and ever and ever, when you try and think back of like linear, why would you do that? It just seems so backwards. And linear folks are just like, yeah, help me to make this even more powerful and supercharged than, the linear bias that I'm used to. And the taking the time and making the effort to reflect on, you can have the transparency and the targeting that you're looking for through CTV and through programmatic. And the value here is what you're getting on the other side, the reporting, that the insight, the transparency into the outcome, which you may not have had in linear buying. And linear buyers understand that. It's a really clear thing of like, oh, you're going to basically help me achieve my goal, my many goals, but in a lot more seamless, automated way. Like that is absolutely a level of understanding that is super important, but it's on the onus on tech partners, publishers, sophisticated buying shops like Strategists to continue to help demystify some of these like scary complexities to show that this actually does achieve your goal, and let us show you how.
Yeah, for sure. And I think both of you guys made the point that no one in the industry is holding things back, but there is a lot out there. It's nuanced. There's a lot to learn. And from a targeting perspective, Nicole, I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but what are some of those questions, especially maybe it's somebody who has a linear background, those questions to ask ad tech partners to ensure that they're going to get the most from the technology out there for these campaigns and how to target them. And I know we go a little bit deeper into that from things to be thinking about and best practices, but just since we're on the subject of targeting, I think it'd be helpful to hear your perspective on that one.
Yeah, I would start with, if I was a buyer, I would start with explaining what it is I'm trying to achieve. Just everything from my spend needs, my reach needs, and then my lower funnel outcome needs. Because then it'll be easier to ask the questions of like, okay, how can you help me achieve X, Y? So if I was asking a publisher, I would ask them what level of transparency is available, and help me understand what that means in terms of you know the general content targeting, or contextual targeting, or ID targeting. I would want to understand from my supply side partners or my DSP partners, what capabilities do you have in terms of measurement partnerships and addressability partnerships? Who are you working with? And can those partners, are those measurement partners that I work with, iSpot, VideoAmp, Nielsen, Comscore, EDO, et cetera? Is this currency the same kind of currency that I'm used to buying off of? I would ask, like, can you do this for me, or do I have to know how to do that? I mean, I think that's a really great way to, enter into the programmatic space of, maybe I can just partner with somebody who really seems like they understand what I'm trying to achieve and is helping me, is answering these questions for me, and then can do it for me and from a managed service perspective, or can help me really feel comfortable doing this myself. I would ask, like, what attribution capabilities do you have? And by the way, attribution is not a super easy, capability that everybody has. And so again, it comes back to what is it that you need to see? And where have you seen success before? If you've seen a lot of success through, walled gardens like Meta or TikTok, why is it those have been successful for you? Is it, really low funnel, uh, goal that you're trying to hit? Let's work together to design what's the right makeup of supply and tech partners, including addressability partners and measurement partners, to help you achieve the same goal that you are achieving with those. And also, do you have the right formats, right? With social, I could just keep going on and on and on, Mark. Social, right? There's the concept of vertical video. Can you take vertical video assets that can be clickable, and engage with them and transfer those onto the open web? And
Yeah.
absolutely, there are plenty of publishers who can do that.
And I think, and it's great that in to that point that we could go for a while on these types of questions, but the takeaway is that there's a lot out there and nobody probably has all the answers. So the more questions you can ask and the more counseling you can give to buyers, the better, right? And really pull that out of what they're looking for in those conversations. Let's switch. Yeah,
I
let's
was just say
switch gear.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Just the last thing on there,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's a right or wrong necessarily, right? Like I think that there's a lot of different paths to get to the result that buyers are looking for or a client is looking for. But if you don't have that conversation and you're just executing media, whether it be directly, programmatically with CTV, with linear TV, with FAST. If you don't have that conversation, then you're not going to be successful in achieving the end results that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit about FAST. And I know it is a huge part of the CTV landscape. I think, the quote SVOD streamers, if you will, capture a lot of the headlines, but arguably, I think FAST is doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to CTV advertising. And Joe, I know this is near and dear to your heart. So from your perspective, how does FAST, when you're talking to clients and we're having those conversations and the conversations that we were just describing, how are you walking the Xumo clients through FAST having that same impact as SVOD, and how should FAST be part of their CTV advertising strategy?
Absolutely. And so I think this is a tough one, because if I go back 8 years, in the beginning times of Xumo and Pluto and Tubi, when everyone was launching the FAST portion of their business in that regard, I, I would go back and almost argue that content was absolutely not as premium as it is today. And I think it started FAST off almost in the wrong path. And I think we're still fighting those misconceptions of what FAST is versus SVOD services or even different AVOD services. And today, those lines are getting massively blurred. I'd say all three of those plus traditional TV when it's delivered through a streaming app or a streaming service versus through traditional linear cable distribution. FAST, I go back to something like Blue Bloods. Right? Blue Bloods is available on it's a scripted show that was originally released for linear TV that's available on FAST services like Xumo and Pluto. It's available through AVOD services. It's available through SVOD services like Netflix. The traditional SVOD services are launching ad tiers. And so we use a lot of the acronyms and we describe a lot of the different distribution methods. But at the end of the day, all of them are getting really blurred. And it comes down to being able to deliver content in the way that a consumer wants to access it. And so making that path as easy as possible, making it incredibly easy for a consumer to find the content that they're looking for at the time that they're looking for it so that they can access it. FAST gives a little bit more of the linear cable experience where it's programmed to a viewer. It's lean back. It's that guide-like format that they're used to. Where I think the other access points are a little bit more of that on-demand type execution, that feature where a user can go out and seek the content versus something being programmed to them. So again, slightly different, but I would argue that they're all very similar in nature in terms of the premium nature of the content. And then the end experience that they're providing a user is watching really entertaining content on a big screen.
Yeah. Nicole, FAST from the PubMatic perspective, working with clients across a lot of these different platforms, touched on it earlier, but what is the perception of a lot of clients you talk to with regards to FAST?
FAST serves a really important purpose for our buyers, and to Joe's point, it's not only about reach and scale. It can also really be about branding and connection with like studio quality content that is available through these FAST channels now. And I think the one of the great benefits of FAST and folks like Xumo. And I remember back in the day when Xumo used to travel around with an actual TV and do like live demos of like Xumo channels, is that they paved the way, right, for the Disneys of the world and the Tubis of the world and the Plutos of the world to really know how to enable programmatic capability. So they serve a great purpose in not only delivering high quality and scaled supply, but also helping us all get to a point where programmatic really works across a large marketplace, and we can be very diverse in how we deliver outcomes to buyers. So our buyers love fast. And again, buyers are smart. They know that, some supply sits up here, some supply helps deliver a consumer, through the bottom of the funnel, and every supply has its place.
Yeah, yeah, and you bring up a good point of how a lot of these providers are now launching and have launched the ad-supported tiers where it's sort of, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I think is how it goes. But it's yeah, it's certainly a big part of the mix. Tactics. Let's talk some tactics for advertisers. And for both of you, either one of you can take it, but just balancing inventory, premium inventory scale and efficiency, right? Because those don't always live together in the same sentence, but they're important from an advertiser's mind. So what are your thoughts and what are some of the tactics that you would counsel your clients?
So I could start. I would say it's important to do a couple of things when you're talking to publishers. Again, ask about transparency and signals, and also understand pricing. It is absolutely fair to have a direct conversation with a publisher that you want to buy directly. Know, though, that you can work with tech partners on the supply side and on the demand side who can have those conversations for you if you don't have time to go and talk to every single publisher and ask them every single detail of their how they go to market and what they can provide to you. So understanding again, what is it that I need as a buyer and who are the right partners for me? And can I lean on a supply side platform or a demand side platform to help me curate the supply that is right for my overall needs or my specific needs for this campaign? Can help educate me because I need to understand what's the difference between, Xumo and Peacock. They're both Comcast properties. Like, how should I be thinking about these differently? And then to make sure that you are clear on the outcomes and what can be delivered. What is it that a DSP or an SSP or a publisher is going to show me at the end of this campaign or help me track to make sure that I feel like I'm very comfortable with what occurred with this campaign and achieved the outcome that I'm looking for. And I would say it's really our responsibility as kind of like the programmatic, ecosystem, publisher, tech providers, consultants, demand side platforms, supply side platforms, agencies, to help buyers who are new to this space understand what it is that they can achieve here, asking them a lot of questions, and then just giving them insights into the differences between all of the different partners and what to expect from each. And remember, there is no dumb question. This is a business that we, for some reason, decide to make like super complicated. But it's less complicated the more questions you ask. I would say linear can be like super complicated to someone who's not in the linear business. So don't think that you're, not getting it because it's just a matter of asking and learning.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what the brand is looking to achieve, and then how far along they are in their the complexity that they add to their campaigns. So is it a linear TV buyer that's shifting into more of a digital space? Is it a direct-to-consumer product that has traditionally used social media platforms and display, search display, and how we can help bring that all together? Xumo is experts in content delivery and in platforms and in the video space, and so that's where our bread and butter of our business is. And so we understanding what a client and what an agency is looking for, we can help give ideas of where that fits into the overall strategy. I go back to the tech platform days prior to Xumo, and we worked with an auto advertiser where they knew that if they got a client to their build a car page, that led to 1 in 4 of those those users were going to then go to the dealership, and 1 in 4 of those users were actually going to buy a car. So their goal wasn't to get a consumer to buy the car. Their goal was to get the person to that page, and they knew that if they served them with 16 ads on video ads, that would achieve that goal. And so that's really where Xumo can help put that together. Say we're also, it comes down to being really thorough about the different products that are available. And so again, on our platform, we know what's available, and we work really closely with partners like Nicole to expand that out to other platforms and make introductions in other areas. But really, it comes down to the brand and the agency with the publisher and the tech platforms having the conversation of what they want to achieve, and all being really realistic about what's possible and what's not, and then coming together with a plan that can get there.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
I would add one last piece to this that we haven't actually talked a lot about, and I don't know, maybe this is a well-known piece of it, is that there are different ways you can craft deals and like ways you can buy this programmatic supply. It's not all like open auction, and it's just, the these dark spaces, and who knows what it's going to be, and it's all, fraudulent inventory. It isn't. And there are a lot of different ways that you can craft your media plan and how you want to spend your money with a buyer, that your supply partners your publisher partners can help you with, your tech partners can help you with. If you're used to more direct IO that, through, for example, linear or, just standard direct IO on streaming, you can lean on programmatic guaranteed deals. If you want a little bit more flexibility to buy more premium supply when you see it, and you want the flexibility of being able to increase how much you're bidding, you can lean on a private marketplace type of deal with like a floor price. And these are all things that can be easily, defined. They're pretty simple concepts of you buy the way you want to buy. It comes down to, what do you need? Do I need to secure all this inventory on a publisher in advance and make sure it all delivers because I want to have that brand alignment? Programmatic guaranteed deals make a lot of sense. Do I just want to make sure I can scale as much as possible? Private marketplaces may make more sense. Do I want scale across a curated list of high quality suppliers? Then an auction package might be the best deal type for you. But it's not only about the supplier and the partner, also how do you want to buy this, which makes it even more, exciting and important for, for buyers to include programmatic CTV on their media plans.
Sure. Well, and you sort of went down this path, and I'm cognizant because I do want to leave some time for the chat functionality, but would love you to touch on any other ways to set that expectation of accountability for buyers when they're having these conversations with partners, tech partners of TV. It's the
Along with all those other points, I would say ask your supply partners and your tech partners to tell you what they have done. Tell them to show me what you have done for customers like me, right? Ask for case studies, ask for examples, ask your peer set, do you work with this partner? Does this make sense, and does it work? Let them prove out that they do have, your best interest in mind, and can, craft a media partnership that works for you and helps achieve your goals. One trend that we have seen and we've really leaned into, and this comes from listening to buyers and kind of the complexity of pieces of programmatic buying has been developing a generative AI tool that helps buyers to build packages in a much simpler way using natural language versus becoming some like really deep programmatic, technologist who's been, buying, trading for the last, 10 years. This to me helps further democratize the access of this high quality CTV supply that you can buy at scale in real time on your terms, whatever deal type you want to craft. And we know that generative AI and AI in general is changing everybody's world. So why shouldn't it, also change programmatic buying and make this task a lot easier and more performant for our customers? So I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger. That's my trend.
Thank you.
I'd
The
say
bingo
that's
card is safe with generative AI being checked off. So thank you.
Got it.
I think that's certainly true. I think starting off, it's incredibly important for everyone to be on the same page of what the expectations are and what the goals are, what the outcomes are that we're looking for. We saw a commercial last night where I was trying to remember the brand, but someone ordered a squat set, like a weightlifting set, and then watched it be delivered. It showed up on the front step, and the Ring camera shows it, and it was this tiny little box. And I think sometimes we think about the rise of technology and things that have made our lives a lot easier, but at the end of the day, we really need to think about what we're doing. And if something doesn't make sense, or if something's, we talked about the race to the bottom earlier, if you're getting live sports for an incredibly low CPM, may or may not be what you're actually expecting. And that's really where the conversation needs to happen. And expectations need to be set properly to make sure that the outcomes and what both a buyer is getting and what the seller believes to be selling them and what the tech partner believes to be sitting in the middle of is all the same. And then I would say expanding on AI, because I think that it would be remiss to not talk about it a little bit, given the direction that the industry is going. So I think there's so many tools that are available, programmatic execution being one of them, that make us able to scale and do things that we were never able to do before, both on the targeting end, on the measurement side. But then also when we talk about fast and all of the signals that are associated with it, it's not possible for people to go through and normalize everything, where I think we'll really start using different technology tools to actually improve the way that content is surfaced and measured and seen. And so I think they're leaning into it versus shying away from it is something that as an industry we're going to need to continue to do.
Totally agree.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Well, why don't we take a couple of questions? I'm looking through the Q&A list here. Found a good one to start on, and either of you guys can jump in. What's the future for walled gardens? Will it ever be easier to include YouTube TV, Netflix, and others on my media buy and measure in a holistic manner, or is that just a dream? That's coming from, I think all of these are actually anonymous attendees, so we'll stick with that.
Well, I'll start. So Netflix is not, I don't think Netflix is trying to be a walled garden. In fact, I don't think it is actually, in that you should be able to buy it through multiple DSPs. Earlier when they were leaning on Microsoft, it was kind of walled garden-y, but I would take Netflix out of the walled garden and say absolutely their intention is to broaden access for customers that helps them, right? More customers coming to them, the more money they make, the more, auctions in a, more bids in an auction, the higher the yield for them. So YouTube and other walled gardens. So I think the problem is that there's no reason for a walled garden to change, right? Buyers are buying it whether it works or doesn't work, your perception of it's overpriced, it's complicated, it's et cetera, whatever. There's no like problem that YouTube has where they have to change their model. And I feel like that's the same with Meta and some of the others. And that when you see publishers become less walled garden-y, it's because buyers have forced them to deliver, help them get more access, more, diverse access. So I guess it's more of a question of like, what do buyers want? Do you want them to be these kind of monopolistic walled gardens forever and ever, or do you want to try to diversify your budgets to open web, where you could probably achieve the same goals in a much more transparent, maybe even easier automated way through, like the person said, like, sort of automated, holistic, and it's going to feel like a dream, but it's going to be this like beautiful reality. But it comes down to, you know, if buyers want it and they can, produce enough, you know, I don't want to say pain, but I'm going to, on these walled gardens, then sure, they'll change. In the meantime, why should they?
Yeah, I think ultimately it will evolve. I think you're spot on. It does come down to the buyer. They're the ones that control everything in this ecosystem, whether they believe it all the time or not.
Sure.
But I do think we're already starting to see the walls come down slightly with a lot of nuances, I'd say. But Amazon right now is interoperable and working on the DSP and SSP side of their businesses to connect to other platforms, which is something that if you asked me 3 years ago, I would probably say they would not have gone that route. When we talk about programmatic, we've had Super Bowl ads now transacted programmatically, right? Like if you said that 10 years ago to a linear TV buyer, they would have laughed at you, right? And so I think things are happening faster. That said, I think there's going to be a lot of nuances of potentially how that supply and data gets normalized and used in a more open scenario, because I think there's still a lot of value there to the walled gardens around that. But I think buyers are going to ultimately push them down a path. It's just a matter of whether it happens in a year from now or 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I think we have to double check that Amazon piece because I think Amazon is still actually closed to just the Amazon like piping, but they have let in all these other publisher partners that you can access through something like Fire TV that is available through, but just one more level of like complexity and because they've already done this, there is pressure, absolutely pressure on Amazon to say, hey, wait a minute. If Netflix is doing this, if Disney is doing this, they have all these other DSP and SSP partners, and these are our biggest competitors. Why wouldn't we take the opportunity to introduce more customers into our marketplace? So I think absolutely the walls are definitely coming down.
Yeah. And I think you both made a good point that if buyers feel they can get that same efficacy, that same performance outside of the walled gardens, they might start to make those decisions as well, right? Because ultimately they hold the purse strings and have a lot of control. And Joe, you made me smile because I actually did get laughed at quite a bit at ESPN when I would talk about delivering ads programmatically in live sports, and yet here we are. So, all right, I've got a reach question. I think this one for you, Joe, would be a good one. Do you think a buy with the premium players, Netflix, Peacock, Disney, Paramount, is good enough to get reach potential for an advertiser? Do you need to include platforms like Pluto, Tubi, Vudu, and those types of platforms?
I mean, I'm a little insulted that the person didn't include Xumo in their description there, but I'll let that one slide.
I almost added it and I thought about that. So
I think they need to go broader than just the beginning partners mentioned. I think at this point, when you look across the way that consumers are accessing content, they're using fast services. I think I don't know the exact stat, so I'm not going to even misquote it, but I know that I believe that there is a very high percentage, I want to say 70%, but I want to fact check myself first, of of video consumers are accessing at least one fast service. I think in the rise of CTV, all of the TV OEMs have much more enhanced interfaces than they ever have before. All of them have their own fast services as part of that. I think if you're limiting where you're buying supply to specific SVOD or other video services and not including either the TV OEMs and or the broader partners in this space, then you're just limiting the audiences that you're going to reach.
Yeah. Great. I want to get to a couple of more questions. I'm just reading through these here, and there is a lot of interest in these questions, so hopefully we can get some information out post webinar as well. Nicole, this is a good one for you. In your experiences, can you share any successes in getting a traditional linear TV seller to embrace programmatic and trust the process on reaching the right audience at the right time? And I think they might have meant buyer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So a good example is like DR buyers who are used to kind of like lower priced supply that is kind of preemptible. It's sort of like it runs, when it clears. Those linear buyers are have become a lot more open to buying CTV in a programmatic way because they can negotiate a price and they can buy what they see when they see it at the right, time and price. And if it's not performing, they can, pull back on their investment. I also think that showing, we have so many Fortune 500 brands who are buying CTV programmatically and showing them that it doesn't have to be this, this paradigm that we created for the display world of programmatic from, the early years of programmatic, that buying CTV programmatically can be as sophisticated or as simple as you need it to be. It's just a matter of kind of explaining a PG deal is an IO, but just run in an automated fashion. I think that linear buyers who start to see that you can be very targeted, there is a lot of transparency available, you can guarantee a budget, you can get the pricing that you're looking for. Once they understand those elements, that they feel a lot more comfortable buying CTV and buying CTV in a programmatic way.
Great. Excellent. Well, I think we are at time, and that's a good one to end on. So look, on behalf of Joe and Nicole, I thank you and thank Strategus for putting this on, but great to be able to share thoughts and perspectives and some tactics with everyone. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.